all doing well. This is again part of the Etude series. This is going to be number 6 out of the 70 Progressive Studies for Bass Trombone by Gillis. Be sure to get a copy of this book if you don't have one. As always, check out the description below. You'll find 3 things. First off, you're going to find a lovely link to get a copy of this book if you don't already have it. Second thing you're going to find is a link for a free copy of the warm-up book, which is the warm-up book that I put out that everyone should be using if you want to play your absolute best. And last but not least, you're going to find timestamps to be able to jump through this video. It's going to be in 3 sections. Firstly, we will start off with a little bit of a lesson, talk about a couple things, work on a couple specific areas. Number 2, we're going to count through this a little bit and talk about how to count in general. Number 3, we're going to just do a top-to-bottom performance of this with no breaks in a performance mindset. So let's get to work. As always, make sure you give a like, comment, and subscribe below if possible. And if it's giving you value, make sure you let us know what else might help you guys out. And then also be sure to check that notification bell if you want to know when more of these videos are going to be coming out. So let's get to work. Make sure you've got your numbers ordered on the measures. And that's a weird way of saying it, but let's keep going. Here we go. Let's move to the 5th and 6th measures. This is going to be the first place we're going to look. For these, we're going to be focusing on these 2 because we are in the time signature of 5/8. We have 5 beats in the measure. The 8th notes are going to be getting the beats, which in typical 5/8, you're either going to count it in strict 5, or you're going to group your counts into 2s and 3s. So in this specific etude, we're going to be doing 2 and 3 groupings, but in measures 5 and 6 for the first time, we're going to go from doing a 2 and then a 3, so 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, to then reversing it in measure 6 into 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So what we want to do and work on here is being able to feel the difference between those 2 pulses, make sure that it's still nice and clean and crisp, but does give a slightly interesting feel for the listener on the other side of the horn. So let's try it out a little bit under tempo, measures 5 and 6. All right, so again, we're listening for that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. Okay, that's counting it in strict 5, or 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. Really listening for the identical articulation, separation, and spacing on those notes, but still being able to give a slight shift in pulse and feel to make it a little bit more interesting. Let's try it one more time. Here we go, measures 5 and 6. All right, now second place I want to jump over to now is going to be measure 13. This is just going to be a descending chromatic scale. But whenever we have scales, whether it be a chromatic or just a regular key signature, we're going to sometimes be tempted to kind of mentally check out. That's where mistakes will happen. It's not hard for us. We kind of recognize the pattern. Instead, what I want you to do is, rather than check out on the fact that you don't necessarily have to read those notes, I want you to use that as a chance to look ahead in the music, see what's coming your way, and make sure you're staying engaged and really aggressive with blowing through, still sounding great, to prevent those silly mistakes from popping up. So let's try it out. We're going to actually play measures 13 and 14 to get all the way through the descending chromatic. And then in addition to that, make sure you're blowing straight through that phrase, really giving power as we start to descend the line. Let's try it out. Here we go. Measures 13 and 14. Now, what we also want to pay attention to is on certain notes, whether they be accidentals or just the general range of the horn, depending on where you are. In this case, it becomes there are accidentals. Some of the notes are naturally going to stick out a little bit more cleanly than the others, so that we need to, at times, make sure that we're adding a little bit of extra articulation so that all the notes are even. And then we can, if we want to, we can then choose to give slight adjustments to the quality or the volume or the articulation or the spacing. We can change style, but I want you to make sure that when you're choosing to make music by altering the consistency of music, that it's a choice and not something you're doing by accident. So let's try it one more time, really focusing on the evenness of each and every note. Here we go. Alrighty, now let's jump back up to the top. We're going to move on to the second portion of the video where we're going to work on counting. Now, for this etude, we can do counting in 2 different ways, and we did a little bit earlier, so let's kind of recover that again. We can either count in 5, so we are in 5/8, 5 beats the measure, 8th note gets the beat. So we can simply just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For certain etudes, for certain pieces of music that are in 5/8, that's going to be a great way to do it. In certain settings, that's going to give the best feel for pulse and style. In other scenarios, it's going to be easier to count it as 2s and 3s. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So feeling that shift as we go. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to count this both ways so that we can see and feel a little bit of that difference. So as always, when we're flexing the golden pipes, if you're comfortable and confident, go ahead and sing the actual notes themselves and get used to doing that. And for those of you that are thinking you might want to do music as a career or a profession in the end result, the more you sing, the more you get comfortable with this, the easier your courses in college and your job in general will be. So don't be bashful. I certainly don't sing like anything pretty, but it's confidence is 9/10 of the law. Let's get started. So here we go. We're going to count this strictly in 5 to start. Then we'll shift to the other way. So here we go. I'm going to give us a measure for free, and then we'll get started. Here we go. 1, 2, and ready, and count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1. And you can keep going. You get the right idea. Now, what you can tell is at times, even for me, I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable because at certain points when I'm counting in 5, there are moments where the number that I'm counting out loud doesn't seem to comfortably correspond to the way the notes are grouped in general. So now we're going to go back and we're going to count it in 2s or 3s. Now, one question you might have is how do you determine whether it's a grouping of 2 or a grouping of 3? Typically what we're looking for are things like when you just have a descending scale pattern, A, G, F, or E, D, C. Those are typically going to tell you where a grouping is. So if you have 3 notes together that are all in a descending scale pattern, that's a pretty good obvious indicator that you're going to be in a group of 3. If you have a jump where you go from a lower note to a much higher note, a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth of interval spacing, that's typically going to be a grouping of 2. So those are some quick things to look at. That's by no means the only way to judge it, but for this specifically, that's a pretty good way to kind of get a feel for what you're looking at. So let's try it out. Here we go. From the top, same tempo, same everything, but we are going to count 2s and 3s rather than just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here we go. Ready? 1 and 2 and ready and count. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. Alrighty, so a little bit more interesting how it feels just from the counting side of things. And we had previously in number, I believe it was number 4 out of the Gillis book, we actually counted 3, 4, and 6, 8, and we felt that same difference. So be looking out for these things. It will make a difference for those of you that are getting better and better on the horn. So now let's move to our third and final part of this video. We're going to just play top to bottom. As always, remember, we are now in a performance mindset. We don't stop. We don't go back. We don't hold grudges or regret things that went wrong. We stay focused only on playing our best moving forward, using a ton of air, tons of openness. As always, rules of thumb, you need to sound your best. If you don't sound good, no one wants to hear it. Next thing I want you to focus on for this is really clean articulations on each and every note, good separation between the notes themselves, and consistency no matter what grouping it is or where you are as far as the range is concerned. So let's start it off. Again, no regrets, just perform your absolute best. Let's get started. Here we go. See you next time. As always, be sure to comment below if you have any questions or concerns. Be sure to throw us a like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And we will see you in the next Gillis video.